Welcome to American Education FM, everybody. I'm Dr. Sean Brooks.
Ladies and gentlemen, I have one for you today. Welcome back. First of all, I want to revisit just a couple of, one particular topic from the last episode regarding Boeing and the airplanes. It's a particular angle, I guess, that I didn't even cover, and in fact, I'll just mention it right here off the top. Regarding, again, the airplanes and the different scenarios that could potentially happen, and again, I'm not hoping that any of this happens, but I would encourage people to think about this one too. And again, I don't think I mentioned this in the last episode. We know the media's capacity for lying. Pretty much goes without saying. They certainly do it with fake school shootings all of the time, and they did it with 9/11. So, regarding Boeing and sort of the very real and gaslighting tactic that's being used regarding why the planes are falling apart and why the emergency landings are taking place and so on and so on. They don't even have to take down a plane in order to tell people that a plane has been taken down. There don't even have to be passengers on said airplane in order to convince people that a plane has been downed with passengers. Again, it's the same playbook that they used with 9/11, that they've used again with fake school shootings. They use it with lots of different things. All they have to do is show a field in the middle of some place with smoldering something coming out of it. And it could actually be an airplane, but there's nothing saying that there have to be passengers on that airplane. All they have to do on the television is tell you that there are passengers on this airplane. And then, of course, all they have to do is show random pictures of random people selected off of the internet or AI images of people, and then just show them on TV, and people will believe them and will believe that, oh, these were the passengers and these were the people who participated, unfortunately, and how sad it is. Again, they don't have to actually bring a plane down manually if they don't want to, in order to traumatize people and convince people that flying is not the thing to be doing. Now, me personally, as I've said before, I don't recommend flying for a variety of reasons. This, of course, is one of them. But before all of this Boeing stuff started taking place, there were endless reasons to not fly. Electromagnetism, of course, being one of them. People get on airplanes with all kinds of jabbed people, and then you get off of the airplane, and a day or so later you're ill and you don't know why. And you say, well, it was probably all those unvaccinated people on that airplane. No, that wasn't it. But either way, again, with Boeing and their troubles and their admitted troubles, that's certainly another reason to not fly either. But again, the point that I just wanted to make is that they don't actually have to down a plane to tell you that a plane has been downed. Remember, on 9/11, they had the FAA's participation in all of it. They were saying that there were planes in the sky when there were not. They were saying that, one crashed into the Pentagon when it clearly did not. Same thing again with the towers. Same thing with Pennsylvania. There was no fuselage. There was no plane. They just simply told people that there were planes, and then they showed them enough visual evidence to convince people who were traumatized that there was an actual plane going down, or multiple planes going down. So I think you get my point. It's just another scenario. Again, this is difficult for people to wrap their heads around when they actually believe what their television tells them. And they, of course, don't understand that the TV is a brainwashing device. That's why it was created in the first place. Again, it just has to do with comprehending evil. If people can't comprehend evil, and that evil exists, and that people lie on earth, well, they're going to believe everything they hear, and they're going to believe everything they see. They're not going to think for themselves. Of course, that's their problem, and it's a terrible problem to have. Okay. With that aside, let me briefly mention this whole TikTok ban thing, because Congress, of course, just passed it. This particular bill, which of course restricts numerous individuals' free speech. And again, it basically gives government carte blanche to dictate who is actually an enemy of the state and then eliminate a particular company or a particular platform, whether it, again, be a website or a social media platform or what have you. Again, There are a lot of people going back and forth and a lot of videos out there of people splitting hairs on this particular issue. They're saying, well, it doesn't do this and it's not as bad as people think. And then there's other people saying, no, 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 it's way worse. Look, this isn't complicated. Let's just take the middle road and let's take a higher dimension of thought and just simplify this. Is government seeking to control the way that you can communicate online? Yes or no? If the answer is yes, then it's a bad thing. Again, it's not worth splitting hairs over. It's not worth getting in arguments with people about, no, it's this way. No, it isn't. It's this way. A president can do this and a president can't do that and blah, blah, blah. Who cares? It doesn't matter. It's government overreach. Again, in my humble opinion, that's basically all people should be focusing on regarding that particular subject. It's terrible. It's government trying to be the parent. It's government trying to gaslight everybody into believing, again, that the CCP is our number one enemy. Well, they're an enemy, but they're not our number one enemy. I mean, I would go so far as to say our government is. Because again, if the government gets to dictate who the enemy is and who the enemy is not, they're trying to do the thinking for you and the thinking for me. I don't like that. No one should like that. We know who our enemies are. We have that pretty well figured out. The problem is that, again, they want to redefine who our enemies are and then go after those individuals. Well, if they define you as the enemy and you have a website, then they're coming after your website. That's the way that works. So again, it's just government overreach. It's not worth splitting hairs over. It's bad. It's evil. We don't need more laws in this country. We need less. We don't need more restriction of free speech. We need less. It actually leads me to this particular story, which crossed my path here, and again, certainly infringement of free speech, and they, of course, call it speech crimes. This comes from needtoknow.news, and it is titled, Washington State, Get $2,000 cash to snitch on your neighbor for speech crimes. Here's what it says. This is a new bill set to pass into law that would pay up to $2,000 to people who call a government hotline to report hate crimes and bias incidents. A quote-unquote bias incident is speech that is an expression of animus, where criminal investigation and prosecution are deemed impossible or inappropriate. All records will be kept in a state government database. Now, of course, if you've already said that this is unconstitutional, you would be correct. It goes on here, though, and it says Senate Bill 5427 is waiting for leftist Governor Jay Inslee to sign and is expected to become law in the evergreen state. The bill states that the Attorney General's office shall oversee a hate crime and bias incidents hotline, staffed during business hours and dedicated to assisting people who have been targeted or affected by hate crimes and bias incidents, unquote. The bill allows taxpayer-funded payments. Oh, taxpayer-funded, of course. Up to $2,000 per person targeted by a specific hate crime or bias incident. Now, let me stroke my long beard here. Let's do some thinking. I would take a guess, and again, I'm not singling these people out for any particular reason. It's just, a history of behaviors and pattern recognition. But if you're with me on this one, you're probably saying to yourself, I bet the first quote-unquote victim of this, and certainly the recipient of a payout, might be a synagogue. Because again, if there's a number of people inside of a synagogue and one of those individuals pretends to be a quote-unquote Nazi and spray paint a swastika on something on the synagogue, well, doesn't that fall into the category of this? Doesn't that mean that all of the Washington state taxpayers then have to pay every single individual who is inside of said synagogue, simply, of course, because they were the victim, quote-unquote, of a so-called hate crime, or expression of animus, as it were? Honest to God. I mean, you talk about fraud. You talk about fabricating one instance after another and one example after another, which of course all ends in some kind of a payout. You have to be joking. There's no way this is constitutional. Everybody knows that it isn't. And again, are they going to track where the actual phone call came from? Again, you could make up anything with this. You could, yeah, I mean, instantly. I mean, if this actually passes, you're going to have endless people getting together and scheming about particular scripts that they're going to write in order to, again, dupe taxpayers and the government in order to receive payouts from something that didn't actually happen. It's absurd. Absolutely ridiculous. Okay. Sorry, just wanted to get everybody's gears wound up here before I dive into this one. Education stuff. There's a few things. First of all, I'll mention this before I get into some sports-related stuff. As you've heard me say before, in particular when it comes to the fake school shootings, they have to revisit them. And they have to revisit them and stories related to them, even if they aren't even directly related. They still have to bring up something involving the town or the city where it took place, or maybe a person who was involved or whatever. And they have to do it on a semi-regular basis because it's ritualistic torture. They have to, again, re-traumatize people who actually believe that they occur, when in many cases, of course, they do not, like in this case of Uvalde, Texas. But they have to bring back a story that's semi-related and yet not related at all in order to, again, just re-ritualize this particular kind of torture again. Remember Uvalde? In case you forgot, here it is again. I mean, it's that kind of stuff. So this comes from the Texas Tribune, and it is titled, Uvalde Police Chief Resigns After Controversial Report Cleared Officers Who Responded to School Shooting. And it says the following. Daniel Rodriguez was out of town during the 2022 massacre. He told the local newspaper he was not forced, asked, or pressured to resign. So I'm not going to get into the story any more than I have to right here with the title and the subtitle. It's pretty clear. This really has nothing to do with the shooting. They're just bringing this random story back to, again, re-traumatize individuals who actually think that it's real and try to keep it in the so-called zeitgeist as much as humanly possible because, again, they're lying. And they're of course, just trying to cover up what actually happened there, which was, of course, conspiracy to commit fraud. Now, again, they've got to just keep hitting people with these random stories. I mean, the police chief wasn't even in the town when the actual fake shooting/drill actually took place. He wasn't even there. But again, he's just resigning. I mean, it's not even related to anything. It doesn't even matter. He wasn't there. He was out of town. He had nothing to do with the drill, allegedly. He had nothing to do with any shooting because one didn't happen. And that's it. Again, they just need a new story out there so that when somebody gets on a search engine and they type in Uvalde, this will be the latest story that pops up. They have to keep it in the algorithm. They have to keep it going, again, in search engines because, again, when people look them up, they want it to be the latest and newest thing that pops up in case people forgot. It's absurd. Again, it's sort of their calling card, if you will. It's the calling card of a fake school shooting is that a story about it keeps popping up. That's one of them. The other one, of course, is that it'll occur and then never be mentioned ever again. Because again, take the so-called Iowa shooting from back in January. Has anybody been arrested for that? Was any school official held accountable? Was there any legal documentation that was created that held anybody accountable? Was there an investigation? No, there was none of that. There was none of the things, for example, that happened in Oxford, Michigan. Again, that's one of the other calling cards, too. It just proves that it didn't happen. Is there a trial for anybody? Has anybody been arrested? Anybody been charged with anything? Nope. So there you go. Okay. That leads me to this now. no real transition here, but I found this interesting, and it's a subject that I've brought up in the past, and I wanted to revisit it because this occurred just this past week. Nick Saban, the former head coach of the University of Alabama's football team, was testifying in Congress, sort of in this little round table with some of his senator buddies, because they all get along apparently. And they were specifically, again, talking about a number of different things, of course. And one of them had to do with students getting paid. That quote unquote student athletes, of course, now getting paid in the NCAA for, again, their likeness, and they can now do commercials and get paid, and they can be on, the covers of magazines and get paid, and be in video games and get paid, and so on and so on. He made an interesting, I would say, admission, certainly regarding the entire subject and the corrupt nature of the entire subject. And as it turns out, it was one of the major kickers as to why he decided to retire. And he told a quick story, which, again, proves a number of different points, but it also just proves, again, the downslide of our society. And he told a story about how he and his wife would always have the recruits over to his house and make them a giant breakfast, apparently. And his wife would do the same, and then his wife would take the mothers and the parents and go and speak with them, and Nick would take the players and go and speak with them in another room, and so on and so on. And he said that his wife got back with him, and she looked at him and basically said, they're only interested in the money. They're not interested in developing as people. They're not interested in getting a job later on in life. They're not interested in this. They're not interested in that. They're only asking questions about, how does my son or daughter, son in this particular case, of course, how does my son get paid? How are they going to get paid? How much money are they going to make? When does the first check roll in? Things like that. And then they both apparently looked at each other and said, something is seriously wrong here. We can't fight this anymore. Well, no kidding. I mean, no kidding. That's the entire business model now. And again, it's all being done under the guise of diversity, equity, and inclusion. I mean, that's the real reason. That's the under the rug, behind closed door, real reason why they did all of this. It was highly illegal beforehand, and now it's not. I mean, take something else that was highly illegal in the past that is no longer illegal. There are endless things. I mean, we could be here all day listing them all off, but the point is that this is destroying the NCAA. Now, me personally, I'm fine with it. This doesn't bother me one bit. I could care less if the NCAA continues to exist or ceases to exist. They've had enough troubles. They're a corrupt organization anyway. I really don't care. But I do find it interesting that it is being purposefully done, again, for another backdoor reason, is not just the DEI nonsense, but it's being done, again, to degrade human beings. It's being done to dumb them down more than they already are. Regardless of race, regardless of age, whoever it is, anybody going along with all of this is a part of the problem. And I'm certain, again, that it's creating a very difficult time for a lot of these coaches. I mean, it's difficult to have influence with people when they're making money, in particular youth, and they're making copious amounts of money while they're in college, or at least some of them are. I mean, let's face it, most aren't. But some of them do, in particular, again, if they're more widely viewed or if they're at a bigger school and 1,000 other things, then that, of course, is driving enrollment, and it's driving where people choose to go to school, and they want to go to, again, a school that's on TV typically, and on TV more often than another school. So it's not about actually learning how to play a particular game, and it certainly isn't about learning, period. I mean, it's not about learning how to read, write, comprehend, and, become smart and critically think about the real world we live in. That's not what goes on at colleges and universities. And it's certainly not happening with quote-unquote student athletes. No way. Not now. Not when money is the number one motivator among many of them. Sure, it's not all of them, but it's plenty of them. And again, Nick Saban won't be the only one who leaves. Again, Nick Saban, I'm a recovering Miami Dolphins fan. I mean, I was a Dolphins fan from a little kid, well into my 20s. And that was, it was ridiculous when Nick Saban became the head coach of the Dolphins. And again, it was a sore spot for a lot of people because initially we thought, well, great, he's coming from LSU. He's a winning coach and everybody's going to follow his directions. And, here comes the Super Bowl. And he tanked the team. But did he tank it or did the players tank it? I mean, he openly stated, I couldn't do it anymore because, again, they're making too much money. They don't have to listen to me. They can do whatever they want. Well, that's how it is now in the NCAA. So it's game over, basically. I don't know what else to add to it. There is this, though. I will add this. This is hilarious. As I'm sure you're aware, the state of Florida, of course, has done away with all of their DEI stuff, so they say, certainly on their university and college campuses. Well, there's this article from ESPN, which I just thought was absolutely hilarious. Now, again, ESPN is about as hard left-wing as you could possibly get. Everything is about race. Everything is about politics. And they apparently haven't learned their lesson, and they haven't learned the lesson of other individuals that when you take this approach, you lose customers, you lose viewership, and 1,000 other things. Either way, this article is titled NAACP Asks Black Student Athletes to Reconsider Florida Colleges. So I find this funny. They actually believe that black student athletes aren't going to Florida colleges and universities and aren't wanting to play for Florida college and universities because they don't have DEI programs there anymore. Now, there's a number of different angles I could take with this. You could take them at face value and actually believe that aspect of it. You could say, well, of course they're not. Only black students care about DEI, and they're not going there because they're not going to have the DEI programs that they so desperately desire. You could actually believe that angle, I suppose, if you wanted to. There's another angle, which is maybe they don't want to go there because they knew that the DEI programs were the easiest programs to pass. And again, they're not there for the book learning. So why are they really going in the first place? And again, it's not all of them. I'm sure plenty of them, of course, still go and still play on, sports teams on these universities and 1,000 other things. But again, this left-wing outlet of ESPN is trying to convince people that the entire university system in Florida now, because of their elimination, so they say, of DEI programs, is discriminating against blacks. It's beyond ridiculous, but here's what it says. The NAACP asked black student athletes to reconsider their decisions to attend public colleges and universities in the state of Florida in response to the University of Florida and other state schools recently eliminating their diversity, equity, and inclusion programs. It says in a letter sent to the NCAA president, Charlie Barker, it says, and addressed to current and prospective student athletes Monday, the NAACP president and CEO Derek Johnson wrote, quote, "This is not about politics. It's about the protection of our community, the progression of our culture, and most of all, it's about your education and your future," unquote. Well, that's hilarious. That's funny. Because none of that's true. Ridiculous. It says last year, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis signed a bill that prohibits the use of the state funds for any DEI program. As a result, the University of Florida announced on March 1st it had closed the office of the Chief Diversity Officer, eliminating 13 full-time DEI positions and 15 administrative appointments, and halted the DEI-focused contracts with outside vendors. It says other in-state schools, such as North Florida and Florida International, have also recently shuttered DEI programs. It then says NFL Hall of Famer and Florida great Emmitt Smith also spoke out, voicing his disgust at UF's decision and asking minority athletes at UF to, quote, be aware and vocal about the decision. It says in a statement, Johnson said, quote, diversity, equity, and inclusion are paramount to ensuring equitable and effective educational outcomes. The value Black and other college athletes bring to large universities is unmatched. If these institutions are unable to completely invest in those athletes, it's time they take their talents elsewhere, unquote. You've got to be joking. You have to be kidding. I mean, I could be alone on this. Doesn't this seem just remarkably bigoted from their standpoint? I mean, they're saying blacks can't succeed without having DEI programs. And now they're what? Speaking for all blacks now? If I was a black person, I'd be offended by this. This is outrageous. But again, this is this is the way that it goes. This is government. This is private institutions again, and politicians and everybody else thinking that they, of course, can control you. Who's to say that a black student who goes to a university is instantly going to sign up for DEI classes? Do they actually believe that? I mean, is it racial law that has to be the case? Is it state law that has to be the case? Well, I'm black and I'm young and I'm going to a university, so yes, by default, my major is going to be diversity, equity, and inclusion studies or gender studies or whatever. Again, by default, because of the color of my skin. Who actually believes that? These people do, unfortunately. The NCAA apparently has a bit of a problem with it, so does Emmett Smith. Oh no. We have to do what Emmett Smith tells us, everybody. And then, of course, again, the NAACP. We have to follow all of their words and listen to them all of the time and do exactly as they say. It's remarkably insulting. But hey, that's what they do. They love insulting people. They love insulting the very people that they claim to be defending. They don't even hear the words coming out of their own mouths. And of course, they're blaming the universities instead of Ron DeSantis. If it's so bad, how about you just blame the law, not the people following the law? So, I don't know. I think the chaos is ridiculous. I think it's hilarious. As I've said before, the DEI programs, of course, are all pretend. It's all fake. It's all made up. It's just pretend nonsense. And it's just going to drive them further underground. Again, you can outlaw the programs, which they should be outlawed, and that's a good thing. But you can't get rid of the ideology. I mean, again, it's a brainwashing program. You can eliminate the brainwashing program all you want, which is a good thing, again. But getting the actual brainwashing out of the brains of the people, that's a separate task. Again, sitting someone down and explaining to them that diversity, equity, and inclusion was purposefully created to dumb people down, insult individuals, pigeonhole them into a particular category, take advantage of them, waste their time, make them dumber than they potentially already are, and then, of course, lead them to believe things that are not real. I mean, sitting someone down and explaining that to them who actually believes that it's all legitimate is a very tough task, of course. But that's the effectiveness of brainwashing. So, there you go. Just wanted to mention that. Found that to be funny. Here's another one. This one actually isn't funny. It continues to prove numerous points I've brought up on the show, which is rather simple. If you wave a rainbow flag, you're a part of the problem. The ultimate thing, of course, that you are supporting is the early death of the individuals who, again, also wave the rainbow flags and continue to believe every line or every colored bar that is on the rainbow flag. Again, school districts across the United States and the very people supporting all of this have no idea what they're doing. Not a clue. But this came out this week, and this was a particular study, again, having to do with the very individuals who want to play pretend with their genitals and start chopping them off, and then, of course, what happens to those individuals in the long term. Now, you know what happens, and I know what happens, and we've been over it here on the show. It's suicide. That's what ends up happening. So this is from the Threadreader app from Benjamin Ryan, and of course, they link the particular study that proves this as well. But here's what it says, quote, "Study finds that the attempted suicide rate among transgender women who received a vaginoplasty in California was twice as high during the period after the surgery compared with the period before the surgery. The investigators analyzed data on all 868 people who received a vaginoplasty and 557 people who received a phalloplasty in California between the years of 2012 and 2018. There were an average of 2 years of data before and after surgery. In total, A total of 22% of the vaginoplasty group and 21% of the phalloplasty group had at least one ER or inpatient psych encounter during the study period, whether before or after the surgery. If there was a psych encounter prior to surgery, 34% of the vaginoplasty group and 27% of the phalloplasty group had a psych encounter after the surgery. Among those receiving a vaginoplasty, the rate of suicide attempts was twice as high after the surgery, at 3.3%, compared with before at 1.5%. The phalloplasty suicide attempt rate was similar to the general population, while the vaginoplasty group's rate was more than twice as high as the general population. And then it says, quote, in the conclusion of the study, patients undergoing gender-affirming surgery with a history of prior psychiatric emergencies or feminizing transition are at higher risk and should be counseled appropriately, the study authors concluded. This was in the Journal of Urology, and it was titled MP04-20, Rates of Psychiatric Emergencies Before and After Gender-Affirming Surgery. This was actually published September 1st of 2021, so not new. But this right here, ladies and gentlemen, again, honest to God, it just goes to show you that this right here is what school boards aren't even considering. This is why they are not bright people. This is why the people who sit on these boards have no idea what they're actually supporting. Again, they're not thinking people, we know this, but they can't think 2 moves ahead as to the thing that's coming out of their mouth and the repercussions that their support for said thing is going to have on the individuals or groups who, again, align themselves with this kind of behavior. Again, you have endless places now which are outlawing puberty blockers. I believe the entire United Kingdom just outlawed them, if memory serves. I could have that wrong, but I think that I just heard that. I also heard this and saw this actually the other day. Again, it's related. And I couldn't believe what I was seeing. In fact, you can look this up and verify it yourself. I was on YouTube, and I clicked on a particular video, completely unrelated. And then the ad that popped up actually referred to, it was a drug ad. And I quickly skipped it, but not before it got these words out. It is literally a puberty blocker that's being pushed on people, again, in YouTube ads, and they refer to it as precocious puberty. So this is the terminology that they are using for individuals who are experiencing early onset puberty. Now again, early onset puberty is not a medical condition. It's just not. All kinds of individuals, females, of course, specifically is exactly what this was catered toward. It was catered toward females. And getting females to take a prescription drug. And again, it looked just like all those other drug commercials that you see on TV. You know, it had the flashy name and then all the small print and then imagery of females reading books and, you know, little kids lying in bed and whatever else. It was strange. But either way, that's the terminology that they use for it. And they're treating it as if it's a legit medical condition. Like, oh God, Sally had her period at the age of 11. So now we need to give them puberty blockers in order to delay that, without even thinking that the puberty blocking drugs that they're going to be giving their children are going to change their DNA, alter and manipulate their entire chemical makeup, which can actually lead to them, of course, experiencing depression, hallucinations, anxiety, and then the thoughts of wanting to kill yourself, and then, of course, killing yourself. Again, early onset puberty is not a condition. It's usually brought on as a result of environmental factors, and then, of course, the things that they eat and the things that they drink. But it's not a medical condition. It doesn't exist. So what they're doing again is they're trying to gaslight individuals into believing that it's some kind of a disorder to then normalize the puberty blocking taking from the individual, and then, of course, the administration of it via the brainwashed parent who actually thinks that this is a problem. So make no mistake, and this is the very easy step that can be made here. It's not a large leap at all. Puberty blockers making their way into school environments is the next step if it already doesn't exist. Because again, birth control, people could say, well, that's part of it also. That's, of course, a massive problem, and that disrupts the reproductive organs of the female and changes the blood flow and the hormones and et cetera, et cetera. I mean, it's a poison. It's keeping God's created body from doing the thing it's supposed to do. Same thing with this. And that actually leads me to this. Jesse James took a picture of this. This is in his local area. And this, again, continues to prove the adoption from school districts and what school districts are doing when it comes to adopting all of these medical programs and how medicine, quote unquote, it's not medicine, but that the pharmaceutical and healthcare field are combining themselves with school environments. They're becoming one and the same, so that the medical industry has its claws right into American public, private, and charter schools. This particular pamphlet that he took a picture of is titled at the top, School-Based Health Center, and the actual company is called Honor Health. Their website is honorcommunityhealth.org, and here's what it says. It says, School-Based Health Center, Medical and Behavioral Health Services. Now, it shows approximately 5 people on this particular page, 3 of which are black and 2 of which are black females. Just painting the picture here for you so that you can see clearly who they're targeting. It says services offered, medical and then behavioral health. Here's under the medical word. It says primary care, prevention screenings, illness and injury care, vaccinations, dental screenings, HIV/STI testing, sports physicals. Under the behavioral health, it says crisis intervention, individual and group therapy, substance use prevention, nutrition education, suicide prevention. It says virtual visits include medical and behavioral health care by online video or phone consultation. Now, here are the locations where this is available. They're all schools. Except for, well, yes, they're all schools. Owen Elementary, Whitman Elementary, Hart Middle, Mason Middle, Pontiac Middle, Avondale High School, Ferndale High, Pontiac High, Rochester High, Waterford Durant High, Children's Village. I don't know if that's all the same place or 2 different places. And then behavioral health services only, with an asterisk around most of these schools. So over half of them only offer behavioral health services, but the other ones offer the medical as well. And it says at the bottom that this is in partnership with the Oakland Community Schools. Again, they think that this is a preventative thing. What they have no idea is that this is government intervention for the purposes of population control. And of course, it's the melding of a corrupt school system throughout the entire nation and the corrupt pharmaceutical industry, and just shoving those 2 things together to make them, again, the exact same thing. It just continues to boggle my mind that people continue to send their children into these environments. It almost does not matter what nefarious action takes place. It could be something like this that people interpret as being okay, although falsely interpreting it as being okay, and it could be an actual murder that takes place in their school, and they'll still send their kids. They'll still send them. And then again, the school will pretend like they are there for the safety and well-being of everybody, when of course we know that that's not true. Again, it deserves a quick revisit on this particular school story also. But there was that, again, it was at the beginning of the month, there was that school district that was having that lunchtime LGBT club that was taking place, where they were Again, inviting students to participate during their lunch, and if they were attracted to girls or they were attracted to boys, then they should attend, but then again, everybody's invited and all that nonsense. The parents showed up to that school board, and one at a time were unfortunately too polite for my taste, but they were, again, bringing up what was going on and how they weren't told and how no one's been held accountable and blah, blah, blah. And then the part, of course, that no one tells you is that those parents sent their children right back into that school district the very next day. And they're there again 2 weeks after the fact. So again, are people talking about how these events occur, regardless of what they are, that are infiltrating the school environment and proving that the school environment is degenerate and corrupt? And is anybody tracking the number of people who then unenroll the moment that said story comes to the forefront, where people are aware of what's actually taking place? Again, the disappointing part is that the vast majority, if not all, of the students just go right back, as if things are just going to change. That if they walk up to a lectern and yell in a microphone, that something's going to change. It's not going to change. People have to change. You, as the responsible parent and adult, have to change. That's what has to happen here. Honestly. It's an election year. I mean, they're going to do more school stuff. There's going to be more, school-related violence, and whether it be real or manufactured, there's going to be more things that are coming down the line here. Again, COVID was the Trojan horse. As it's been said on the show a million times, Vanessa Hurst brought it up on the show a million times. She was 100% right. This was opening the Ark of the Covenant, so to speak, and letting out all of the weird stuff on the inside. That's what COVID did. And then, of course, everybody's faces are melting. And again, the people closing their eyes are the ones that are allegedly surviving. But let's face it, the people closing their eyes to what's really going on, that's really the problem here. They could bankrupt these school districts in the blink of an eye, but they don't. They just continue to send their kids right into the meat grinder. Blows me away. Here's another one. Another school fight. This is on Gateway Pundit. My apologies for the reference. Older female, it says. Student brutally assaults 7-year-old boy on Michigan school bus while adults do nothing. Victim's father reveals woke school, then hid the video footage from him. Again, is this student going to go back now? Is the father going to send their student back? Send their son back to this school district or even that exact same bus after this has taken place? I sure hope not. But again, based on human behavior, the answer would be yes. Here's what it says. It says, shocking footage captured on a cell phone shows the moment a vicious 5th grade female, black as it turns out, student beat up a little boy on a school bus while the woke school the children attend kept the footage from the victim's father. So it goes on here. Let's see. This was in Niles, Michigan on March 4th, and it involved Ballard Elementary School students. It says the video opens with the boy staring at his cell phone when the girl starts smacking him around for about 9 seconds. She pauses briefly after the kids, including the victim, start chattering. One taunts the 7-year-old saying, "You just got beat up, little boy, shut up." And it goes on and says at one point the girl tells a friend to record the 7-year-old boy and then reaches out to touch his assailant's phone. The girl beats him up again and tells him, "Don't touch my phone. Don't touch my shit again. I dare ya." Again, Libs of TikTok covered this a couple of days ago, and they can't for the life of them figure out, why this keeps happening. Chaya Ratchik said, "Why does this keep happening?" If you have to ask that question, you're out of touch. It says the adults on the school bus never intervene at any moment as the boy is pounded. The boy's father told RNM that he called the school district's bus garage the very next day to obtain video footage. The district told him that they were investigating the incident and promised to call him back, but this never happened. The father told RNM he then called on Wednesday and Thursday before he saw the video of his son being assaulted online Thursday night. The father also told RNM, which is a media outlet apparently, The school district has not allowed him to view video taken by cameras mounted within the school bus, and that the girl who beat his son had several discipline issues in the past, including being banned from riding the bus. The dad has removed his kids from Ballard Elementary School and is considering legal options. Yay. Good. Finally. A little common sense. That's good. Yes, you should sue them. You should also press criminal charges against the child immediately. Juvenile detention in an orange jumpsuit is where they belong. Press criminal charges against the person who assaulted your son. Take it right to the bitter end, or the justifiable end, I should say. Again, I've been over this at length. I've written about it in every book I've ever written. The fact is that American K-12 schools always cover this kind of thing up. They never want criminal charges. They never want lawsuits. They want to hide as much information as humanly possible from the parents. No one ever thinks it's going to be their child. No parent ever thinks that they're going to be the victim of such a thing. They keep sending their kids into the meat grinder. And this is, of course, is exactly what happens because image protection is the school district's number one concern. That's it. It's always about image protection. They love gaslighting people. It really is one of their best abusive tactics. It works on a great deal of people, which is unfortunate, but there's also people, of course, who know exactly what they're up to and what they do all of the time. So the gaslighting doesn't work on them, which is good. There's this, however, a little side note here before I get into something that's a little more expansive. First of all, just very quickly, I'm sure you're aware of what's going on in Haiti. And I bet three-letter agencies, of course, have turned that place upside down and are helping create the chaos that exists there. And, well, that's what happens when it becomes a playground for pedophiles and the Clintons and everybody else. But there's plenty of talk, of course, about Haitian boats and even individuals in the United States, whether it be three-letter agencies or politicians or whomever, bringing Haitians, of course, to the state of Florida, in particular children. So where are those children going to end up in the state of Florida, ladies and gentlemen? If you said American schools, you would be correct. See, I thought that the 2010 Haitian earthquake, which was probably started by HARP, of course, but I'm just guessing, in order, of course, to destroy that island nation and what have you. But when I was a school teacher in Southwest Florida, we received Haitian refugees, quote unquote, on a rather consistent basis. And they showed up and they spoke French and they couldn't speak a lick of English. Imagine teaching those individuals. You can't. It's next to impossible. And Matt Gaetz, again, was in Congress and he was talking with this Jewish lady and then these other individuals in the military, and they were basically all convincing one another that this isn't happening, even though Matt Gaetz said it clearly is happening. But Matt Gaetz got one thing wrong where he said Haitian refugees just stay in southeast Florida. They come to southeast Florida and they just stay there. That's not true. I lived in southwest Florida. They make their way all up and down the entire state. So it's happened in the past. I bet it's happening now in droves. Again, just another reason to leave. If you needed another one, there it is. So there you have it. Again, that was also on Zero Hedge also. That the administration warns that Florida may get swamped with mass migration wave. Yes. Yep, they will. Okay. Now there's this. And this requires a bit of an introduction. There's a listener of the show and a contributor of the show who I've referenced before, although not by name, not yet. They will be a guest on the show in the future, they have told me, and I'm looking forward to that discussion greatly. I've spoken with this person over the phone as well. Lovely and delightful person. They know who they are. And they are a professor at a Virginia university. And you may recall that there are numerous universities, of course, in Virginia and sort of partnering universities that are now giving tuition absolutely free to in-state applicants. That this is a thing, that this is happening. Before I continue with that, though, let me mention this, because again, this is also a sign of the times and a sign of the collapse, as of course that certainly is. But here in Southwest Ohio, we are very familiar with Northern Kentucky University. And a lot of individuals, again, from Ohio go down there for school, and they down there come up here for school, and so on and so forth. But Northern Kentucky University is also now admitting anybody into their university who, of course, is a senior in high school within their own state of Kentucky who has a 2.75 GPA or higher. They don't even have to apply. They're just automatically accepted. You see what this means? You only make a move like that when you've killed off your entire clientele, so to speak, with COVID mandates and COVID shots. You have a reduction in the birth rate, of course, in the United States. You have increased cost of everything everywhere. And now you need people to show up to your university in order to, at the very least, pay for the first semester. These, ladies and gentlemen, are the moves that a dying university makes. These are all of the flailing motions of a dying and writhing on the ground university who has lost its mind and has no idea what to do or where to go. These are the final moves that they make before the collapse. Tuition becomes free. They drop all their standards. You no longer have to apply. They want anybody and everybody to show up because it's not that they're interested in keeping them around for 4 years. They're just interested in having a massive influx of individuals enroll and start taking their courses for the first semester or maybe even the first year so that they just get money, so that they can keep the lights on and pay the bills. That's about it. And of course, they would use that influx of individuals to make it look from the state level like they have all of these students there now, when clearly they don't. I mean, you can't take a senior in high school and immediately throw them into your university and make it look like they're a junior. Everybody comes in as a freshman. But if they say to the state, well, look at all our freshmen here. Look at all these freshmen we have. The state will, of course, give them more money. And again, that's typically how it works just about everywhere, unless they're a private university or a private college. But again, it's massive corruption. It's massive manipulation. It's massive number fudging in order to make it look like one thing is happening when something else is happening. Now, back to Virginia. The same kinds of things, of course, are happening there. And this individual who's going to be on the show in the future, they work at one of these universities where, of course, this is happening, where I believe in order to attend the university now, you don't have to pay tuition, but you do have to live on campus, if memory serves, for at least, I think, 1 or 2 years, if not longer than that. So you're not paying tuition, but you're paying room and board, and you're buying the food that's there on campus and 1,000 other things. Of course, you probably have to pay course fees and then, the book fees and all that other stuff. But again, these are the dying moves that these universities and colleges are making right now. And they've been making them for quite some time, but the COVID thing blew it all apart. So she sent me this. They ended up sending me a series of emails that they had received that, again, are pushing all of the DEI stuff and all of the professional development, we'll call it, because those are the terms that they use. And then they push this giant thing also on all of the professors at this university that has to do with Stanford University and this giant online Zoom call, 5-day-long professional development for $2,000 a head. Now, allow me to get into some of these courses and other things, again, that they are apparently pushing on, again, not only students, I think, but certainly staff members as well. One of them is called Fall and Summer WGST courses, Women, Gender, and Sexuality Studies courses for the summer of 2024. Human Behavior and Social Institutions Perspective course. There's another one here called Media, Pride, and Prejudice, which is an online course. The other one that I mentioned earlier was an online course also. There's another one here. Let me click on these. Let's see. Gender and crime is another one. Diversity in literature of young readers is another one. Human sexuality is another one. And then there's one more screenshot here of some of these other courses. Let's see. Yeah, gender and sexuality in popular music and art. And this is an honors course. Reproductive justice. That's another course, and that's an honors course. One titled Zines and Marginalized Communities. Now, that's a head scratcher. Zines. What are zines? Does anybody know that? What is a zine? Z-I-N-E. It was such a head scratcher, I looked it up. And it's ridiculous. In fact, I would put it in the category of borderline gay propaganda. It's essentially, well, I'll just read you the definition. Oh, I'm sorry. It's pronounced zine. My fault. I'm sorry. I speak the English language. When I see Z-I-N-E, I think zine, but it's not. It's pronounced with two E's. Zine. How foolish of me. Here's what it says. There's an actual definition for this. A zine is a self-published, non-commercial print work that is typically produced in small, limited batches. Zines are created and bound in many DIY ways, but traditionally editions are easily reproduced, often by crafting an original master flat and then photocopying, folding, and stapling the pages into a simple pamphlet. Zines may also be sewn, taped, glued, or even exist in unbound and non-folio formats. The main rule is that there are no rules. Oh, you rule benders, you goofy rule benders. It's basically a kindergarten project where you're making your own book. You're taking a piece of paper, folding it in half, writing something on the front, something on the inside, and something on the back. Got it. But it's all this gay stuff. So there you go. Apparently there's an entire course at the college level on making your own zines. I'm sorry, zines. How foolish of me. I gotta tell you, I can hear my IQ dropping right now. I can actually hear myself getting dumber. Here was another email that they were sent. It says, "Dear so-and-so, we would like to invite you to participate in a survey to examine your university's commitment to initiatives in diversity, equity, and inclusion. Attached, you will find the informed consent documentation for this work." Let's see. It goes on, it says the Center for Faculty Enrichment, or the CAFE, and the Quality Enhancement Plan Advisory Board invite all faculty and staff to discover Life Design, a framework of the new Postgraduate Success Initiative. It says on Monday, May 13th, Institute participants will explore ways to implement Life Design in the varied context of work with students, including one-to-one mentoring and advising, small and large group co-curricular support, and teaching in Cultivate and in academic majors. The schedule will include a keynote, concurrent learning sessions, implementation work sessions, and a celebratory reception to end the day. You are invited to also attend a pre-institute virtual event on Friday, May 10th, inspired by Stanford's Life Design Studio. Participants will immerse themselves in life design as blah, 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 and that's where it cuts off. Okay, now here's why I'm bringing all of this up and why they brought this to my attention. One of many reasons, of course. All of the previous examples, I think, go without saying. These people have lost their minds. And of course, this individual cannot wait to leave, and they are leaving. They're leaving in May, and then they will be on the show after they resign. Two things before I get into this Stanford Life Design Lab, which is beyond vague and very bizarre. First of all, this right here, ladies and gentlemen, is the other reason for the mass collapse of this entire workforce, so to speak. You can't have individuals this brainwashed continuing to push the brainwashing and expect to survive as a business. You just can't. They're not going to last because all they're doing is teaching nothing. All they're doing is teaching lies. They're teaching pretend. They're teaching everybody to be dumber than they already are, including these zines, which again are basically propaganda or evil propaganda, we'll call it, pamphlets. Again, that kindergarten students make, and now they're having college students do it. And of course, they need to teach professors how to do this, and then they have adult professors teaching courses to teach college students how to do kindergarten activities. Did you follow that? It can't get clearer when it comes to the dumbing down of the human brain. This is exactly what they are doing. Which brings me now to this. This is the Life Design Lab. And the website to check this out if you're suicidal is lifedesignlab.stanford.edu/studio. And here's what it says. Again, you talk about a nightmare of quote-unquote professional development. Here it is. It says Life Design Studio for Universities. Quote, since 2018, the Life Design Lab has been committed to sharing the work of life design, these are capitalized, to college and universities around the world. We have trained over 400 universities, resulting in millions of students touched by the power of life design. We believe firmly that a creative and generative framework with which to address ambiguity is more important now than ever before. With the power of our community, we hope to continue sharing the transformative power of life design. Now, if that all sounds vague, it should, because it's purposefully vague. They have an in-person studio, they have a virtual studio, and then a custom studio. Again, I have a hard time even figuring out what any of this is. But here again, and they purposefully leave it vague. But they have, for this virtual studio, they have two places to register. One is for the month of March, which is what they call their APAC studio, and then one in June for their virtual studio. Now, if you go to sign up for their first one, here's what it says. And this is, again, their brief description of the actual professional development event. Again, if you're not asleep yet, you will be after this. So I'm just going to keep trudging along here because I want you to see how mundane all of this is and what a waste of time. For $2,000 a head, this particular professional development lasts 4 days and 7 hours over Zoom. And here's what it says, quote, WHO, the studio is for university educators, higher education faculty, administrators, or staff from any 4-year to 2-year post-secondary institution, university, college, junior college, community college, or technical school. It says this includes tenure track, non-tenure track, adjunct, clinical faculty, and those who serve students and or faculty at their schools. Program directors and managers, deans and associate deans, provosts, career educators, coaches, etc., so long as your appointment is at least 80% time at the institution. It then says, here's the format. It says the studio is intended for participants in Mountain Time plus 8 adjacent time zones, including Asia and Australia. This event is taught in English. The 4 synchronous training sessions, which again start on March 18th and run through March 22nd, will take place on Zoom between the hours of 8:30 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. During this time, we will engage in synchronous learning through assessments, design challenges, highly interactive discussions in breakouts, and plenary sessions. It says the generous breaks throughout the day. Our goal is to make the time spent on Zoom highly collaborative and energetic. We use Miro, an ideation platform, Google products, and interactive Zoom features to support learning. Outside of the synchronous time, participants will be invited to engage in asynchronous work no more than 1 to 2 hours during each 24-hour period. The middle day of the training, day 3, will be held fully asynchronously, providing time and space to dive more deeply into the pedagogy and materials on your own in preparation for days 4 and 5. Shoot me now. Shoot me now. It says the online studio will be especially useful in getting a feel for teaching life design virtually. It will introduce you to the global cohort of life design educators and facilitate development of the collaborative relationship to support your work. The power of the studio lies in this radical collaboration, it says. Attendance for all synchronous sessions is required. This is not a webinar, but an active design process. And by enrolling, you are indicating your commitment to be fully present online throughout the entirety of the 4 synchronous days, with access to necessary tech and able to participate interactively with peers. Again, what a nightmare. What a nightmare. And then it tells you what you need to bring, and bring a good attitude, and you can dress in pajamas and be comfortable and blah, 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 blah. I'm telling you, this is absurd. And the sad part is people love this kind of stuff. They love it. They attend this kind of stuff. They leave these giant meetings online and they say to themselves, oh, what a great time that was. I learned so much. I met so many great people. What a waste. What an absolute waste. Ladies and gentlemen, the brainwashed are continuing to meet on Zoom and hold professional development sessions and continue to gaslight one another and brainwash one another, and they don't even know it. They don't even know it. They have no idea what they're doing. They're advocating for their own destruction on a constant basis. You talk about MK Ultra, and you talk about brainwashing and wasting people's time and energy on something that does not matter. That right there is it. 4 full work days where they'll get, again, professional development training, so they think. They can put it on their resume and use it in their evaluation process and 1,000 other things. But what an absolute nightmare. What a nightmare. Okay, I'm done with that. Moving on, though, this will take us right into the jab talk. So this happened the other day. There was video footage in the State House of Michigan where it was some administrator, school administrator of some kind, was testifying to the Michigan Congress or Senate, so it seemed, and they openly said that the state of Michigan has a 60% chronic absenteeism rate among students. 60%. Now, why could that be? Perhaps it's this. This is another story. This is from Dave BondiDigital.com, if I'm saying that right. Yep, Dave Bondi. It's titled here, Flint Schools Closed After Massive Teacher Sick Call. It says the following, quote, all school buildings in Flint, Michigan are closed today as 119 United Teachers of Flint, UTF, employees called in sick through the district's Red Rover management system. This development has left the district scrambling to find alternatives for the affected scholars and families. Ah, yes, the affected scholars. What will they do without your precious public school system? It says, expressing dismay over the situation, the district voiced concerns about the impact this closure will have on families, while recognizing that the scholars will bear the brunt of the disruption. The district hopes for a swift return to the UTF employees to ensure educational continuity. It says the union posted the following statement on its Facebook page, quote, actions or the lack of action has consequences. Statements don't create change or resolve problems. Both sides sitting down to resolve them does. When will the district and the board stop talking at the UTF and start talking with them? It says assurances were given, and once the teachers resume their duties, the district will resume its commitment to providing a high-quality education to its scholars. Yes, I'm sure you will. Ladies and gentlemen, they're jabbed. That's it. They have AIDS. That's why they're sick. That's why they're dying. That's why they're dead. It's that simple. People fell for the COVID lie. They injected themselves, to get us out of the pandemic and so they could hug grandma and the whole thing. And now their business is being wiped out, and they don't even know it to this day. And I should say this, if they do know it, they're not going to admit it. Because basic dot connecting would again simply say, what's the one thing they all have in common? What is the one thing they all have in common? That actually leads me to this. I swear to God, I've got to play this for you. You have to see it, though. So I'm going to put this on Gab, and I'm definitely going to put this in the war video. You have to see this. This poor girl. She has no idea what she's done, and she's so brainwashed she doesn't even know what's actually happened to her. Let me describe this if I can. She has her left eye is basically protruding almost out of her face. It's bulbous looking and infected and swollen behind her eye. This girl believes that this is COVID related. It is not. It is shot related. She has no idea. So give her a listen. This is only a minute long, her describing this in 3, 2, 1.
Only 20% of Americans view COVID as a threat to the health of the population today. So just to recap, I got COVID December 2020. That's pre-vaccine. Since I know y'all love to ask. No prior medical history, nothing in the family, and I ended up having an ischemic stroke. It was not from a clot. It was from inflammation building up in my head and causing my internal carotid arteries to become critically stenosed. That same inflammation later traveled right behind my eyeball, where you can see it's now being pushed out of my little skull. I hate it when that happens. So COVID is not the flu. It is very much still here. It has killed people, it has disabled people, and it continues to do so. I acknowledge that we're in a different space now. I'm very, very grateful for it. But long COVID is not novel. The way it manifested in me, a little strange, I'll give you that. There are over 200 reported symptoms of long COVID, so had to be one of them. This is not to fearmonger. All of my besties know that I love my little eyeball, but I would prefer if she was a little bit more inside of my head.
Yes, very funny. Absolutely hilarious. There's a couple of angles I have on this. Number one, is she jabbed? Well, you could take a guess, yes. Number two, she did say that she got quote-unquote COVID, which doesn't exist, before the vaccine rollout, or the bioweapon rollout as we know it. So, again, how many people was she around when she got ill, and how many of them took flu shots? Did she take a flu shot? I'm not sure. This also, believe it or not, could be 5G tower related. She openly said she had a stroke, and then the inflammation has gone from her brain to right behind her eyeball, which is, of course, pushing her eyelid out and her eyeball out as well. Again, this is a person who doesn't understand all the different angles. This is not COVID related, though, because there is no COVID. Again, you heard her describe the existence of what she believes to be long COVID. There's no such thing. There are just symptoms. And again, these are symptoms from being injected, being around the injected, and 5G towers. No doubt about it. So that's my 2 cents on that. But she hasn't learned because she doesn't know what's happening. And that's too bad. Okay, that leads me now to this. I'm seeing and hearing more about this with regularity here, and it has to do with weight loss shots that people take. My Michigan business owner sent me this, and I want to read this for you. This is a description of a weight loss shot that is being pushed on people. And you have to keep in mind something that, again, informed consent does not exist anymore across any form of medicine or any trial or anything like it. It just doesn't exist. So there is a particular weight loss shot that you can assume is being pushed on the overweight by medical doctors. And it is called Zepbound, Zepbound. This apparently causes thyroid C-cell tumors in rats. It is unknown whether Zepbound causes such tumors, including medullary thyroid cancer in humans. Zepbound should not be used in patients with a personal or family history of medullary thyroid cancer or in patients with multiple endocrine neoplasia syndrome type 2. It says that Zepbound has not been studied in patients with a history of pancreatitis, inflammation of the pancreas, or severe gastrointestinal disease, including gastroparesis, if I'm saying that correct. So again, I don't think anybody should be receiving any shots of any kind ever for the rest of their lives, period. And they should be telling their children the exact same thing. Again, there's no more informed consent. It doesn't exist. There's also this, and she sent me this regarding her insurance friend who is in the insurance business, and they said the insurance agent forwarded me an email from their company. The entire industry is now completely upside down because claims are so high and they're paying out more than they're taking in. When she told me about this new shot, the Zepbound, it made me think it sure would solve the insurance loss problem if they killed off a huge chunk of the population. And then they said, who is going to get a weight loss injection? The same people who already got a booster and survived. And I said, yeah, no doubt. Again, if an overweight individual gets a weight loss shot, then they're used to the shots and they don't know what's in these shots. They have no idea. And again, there's no more informed consent. All a doctor has to do is look at a patient and say, well, yeah, it'll work because it's worked, because, of course, we're in possession of it, so it must work. Which means the doctors haven't learned either. Nobody's learning here. In fact, my Michigan business friend just sent me this. They said that they just got an email from their insurance friend, and their insurance friend told them that their company just lost $38 billion this year due to the mass increase in claims. Yes. But remember, if you ask a school board treasurer why everybody's insurance rates are going up by at least 13%, well, it's because that's just the way the market is right now. No, that's not it. That's not it. It's not because it's an accident. It's some miscalculation. It's because you're all jabbed. So get it through your skulls. That's exactly what this is all about. One final thing here before I go. I'm sure you're aware of the solar eclipse that's going to be taking place next month, at the beginning of next month. Schools all over the place are closing down for the solar eclipse. I don't know why. Other than the fact, of course, that they all just play follow the leader, and that when one school district puts out a memo and says we're going to take the day off, then other people tend to do the exact same thing, other districts, of course, so on and so on. It makes no sense. The local school district where I live, they made this announcement back in November, that they were going to take April 8th off for the solar eclipse due to quote-unquote safety reasons, because they think that all of the student drivers are going to be pulling over on the side of the road and it could increase the likelihood of a car accident and blah, blah, blah. I don't get it. But either way, there's a lot of speculation about the solar eclipse, its significance, what it means, of course. It certainly proves that we do not live on a spinning ball. That's the first thing it should prove to people if they were thinking people. It should prove that it's the exact same thing as two hands on a clock crossing one another's path exactly at the exact same time. Either way, with that said, and with schools all across the nation deciding to take the day off, there was also this. This was making the rounds on the old interweb the other day. This is the Oklahoma National Guard, it says. This is out of I assume, a Oklahoma newspaper, but it's titled National Guard to be here for eclipse. Again, this is in Oklahoma, and it says that the Oklahoma National Guard will have guardsmen present in McCurtain County for the total solar eclipse on April 8th. County Emergency Management Director Cody McDaniel told county commissioners. It's estimated about 100,000 people may be in the county for the event. The 22 members of an elite chemical, biological, radiological, and nuclear unit will be housed in Broken Bow, in addition to up to 110 to 150 Oklahoma Highway Patrol troopers. So they're all gathering together to basically, in this particular location, to view the solar eclipse, apparently, among other things, or run security or whatever else. It says there will be about 150 other first responders and volunteers, with many staying at either the sports complex in Broken Bow, or Broken Bow, if I'm saying that right, and or the former National Guard Armory in Idabel. McDaniel is seeking food and funding for feeding them while here. He said the federal government has turned down funding to feed them. The state troopers will be scattered throughout the county, he said. Residents are being urged to stock up with 1 to 2 weeks of food in advance of the event and to have their fuel tanks full. Some parts of the county could have traffic at standstill or at least moving very slowly. It's also considered likely that communications facilities could become overloaded, possibly making cell phone calls difficult, if not impossible, during the event, unquote. Has this ever happened before? I'm seriously asking. I mean, has this ever happened before with a solar eclipse? All of this panic, all of this, I want to see it. I want to see what it looks like. And then being told to gas up and stock up on food and water for, what did they say here? A number of days, 1 to 2 weeks worth? Has this ever happened before? It seems strange, does it not? Very odd. Again, are the bad guys planning something? Is this another Y2K scare event of some kind? Who knows? I don't know. The constant ritualistic torture and the brainwashing is just nuts. I mean, honest to God, I don't recall them ever closing school. We had a full solar eclipse when I was in 7th grade. Anybody remember that one? From back in, I guess, the 90s, that would have been? I mean, yeah, we went outside and stared right at it. We're all fine. Everybody's okay. We made the little shoebox in science class and went outside and looked at it, and, okay, solar eclipse, great. But remember, we're still on a spinning ball Earth, and that's what that means. It's just the lying and the scare tactics. It's just ridiculous. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's all I have. Have a great weekend. Enjoy it. And thanks for listening. As always, one last thing, and I mean this from the bottom of my heart. In the future here, I'm going to have Dr. Robin McCutcheon back on the show. Please say a prayer for her and her family and all that she knows within her family. Her husband lost his mother, who was jabbed, and as she even mentioned on the show, and was diagnosed with stage 4 breast cancer and has now passed away. And Robin's son's girlfriend, who's approximately my age, was also jabbed, although Robin's son is not jabbed. And she had a stroke and has also now passed away. So please say a prayer for Robin McCutcheon and her family. That would be greatly appreciated. And I'm sure that, again, she would certainly appreciate it. And like I said, she will be on the show here in the future to discuss a great many things, I'm certain. So prayers to her and her family and her husband, Tim, and her son, and everybody involved. Beyond terrible, without a doubt. With that said, ladies and gentlemen, I will catch you on Monday. Peace.
Thank you for listening to American Education FM. Make sure and check out AmericanEducationFM.com for more information. Take care and God bless.